Hi, this is Sandy Dimiterchik with Sandy Says. Today we're going to be talking about Juneteenth, and I have Zuhura Namibia with me to talk about this holiday. Zuhura, could you introduce yourself and talk about your background?
Um, I'm Zuhura Namibia, Okir Aporzeki, Ziggy. I've been through training path for my liberation and African rites of passage, and I was assigned this name. My previous name was Patricia Daniels. It was a slave name, and I'm a free black woman person, African American. Okay, Juneteenth celebration is to commemorate our emancipation after 2.5 years since Abraham Lincoln signed the Proclamation of Emancipation for 3,000 slaves.
Okay, and what is the history of Juneteenth?
I just read the
Well, I mean, where did it start?
well they recognized it because it was everywhere, but they recognized it as a raw deal in um, Galveston, Texas. I think that's what it was. Yeah, and they sent some troops down there, and the troops had to take over the state and to free the people that were still held as slaves because the state had them um, using, as free work, labor and things like that, and all over. And so
So my understanding, Sahara, is that even though the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, it wasn't until 2 years late, 2.5 years later, with on Juneteenth, that people who were slaves found out that they were freed. Is that correct?
that was there, but it was all, they don't really recognize the like the Confederates, they don't recognize the Emancipation Proclamation that Abraham Lincoln set 3,000 slaves free.
Right, right, which is horrible. Not that they were freed, but that they didn't recognize that they were freed. And how does this event still impact people today? Hasn't it become a federal holiday?
Well, it's it has gotten um a lot of exposure. People are becoming more aware of actually what underlying things they have been doing to us. They declared us inferior, and they made us accept the inferiority that they have set on us and made us psychologically ill. And so it was a condition. It was a psychological conditioning. First, it was physical. Then they start, working on the mind, the mental.
Right. So this event still impacts people today. And, I think it's really interesting before we start talking about cultural competence that, a lot of people in different cultures have things that have happened. I know for myself, as part Ukrainian, when I was in high school, I found out about Stalin's persecution of the Ukrainians, killing millions of them. And I know how scared I felt. And I can't imagine being a young African American child and finding out that at one time your family members were slaves. Can you comment on that?
Well, we have a program for change, and we use the group process, and we come together. under a commonality, and we help each other, you know, go through the challenges that we'll face in this society, at large.
And what has your personal experience been? I know that in previous Sandy Says videos, we've mentioned that only 4% of therapists are African Americans. What was your personal experience getting help for um, disorders?
Oh, I forgot to mention the fact that what I have incurred, and the impact was that we taken uh, some principles and we use them in our family now. Um, it's like the Nguzu Saba, the same principles that's used during the 7 days of Kwanzaa is used 365 days a year.
Mm.
And they called the Nguzu Saba principles of Kwanzaa. It's seven. Umoja, bringing ourselves together, self-determination, economic, collective economics, collective work, Nia, purpose, creativity, faith. And faith is hope and making a program and stepping out in the name of Jesus, our Messiah. How does this is how it have impacted us. And people today that we have been made psychologically ill, have psychological disorders. So, and as far as 4%, only 4% of Black therapists that can handle the situation. We have Black doctors, we have Black counselors. We um, but we work along those lines of liberation, and we know that we have to work on ourselves. Being able to accept ourselves the way where we are, and help the people that's closest to us. And so, if I can see it, if I can conceive it, I can believe it, I can achieve it. And we have to be visible for the people downtrodden, the people self-reliant. They and a lot of stigma involved for people that want to seek treatment. And as a therapist, I worked under when I first came in the field, I worked under a Black psychiatrist, and he was tough. And a psychotherapist. He was Black. It was a he was a they had their own business. It was in 1976 when I first gave birth to my um, daughter, the one that's here now. And it was a long, and then I went to an African American church, and at that time, and it was just all like 45 years in therapy, and it has influenced me to improve myself. So I've learned diversity in 1986 as a Girl Scout leader, and learning to have culture humility and culture competence is the one that I'm just previously. I had read something last year when we did the minority disparity about the culture competence, and being able to have that training and being able to deal with people with psychological problems of a different race. And when you don't get a Black person to help you, it's kind of hard to relate. But the culture humility is the heart of the culture competence. Culture humility and empathy are deeply connected. When working cross culturally, Emphatic social work practice will not effective without culture humility. The willingness to be a cultural learner, risking and assessing vulnerability are at the core at the emphatic practice. Culture humility allows for a process where clients can articulate their experiences, inclusion of culture, and the social worker is the learner that experience. We cannot simply take off our lens of the world and look through the lens of a client. I can see, that we are different. We can honor and respect people's perspectives as truths, even when they are different than ours. So it encourages us to become students when interacting with individuals of other cultures. So, what does the NASW have to say about culture humility? Source: the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics. Standard 1: Ethics and Values. Social workers shall function in accordance with the values, ethics, and standards of the NASW Code of Ethics. Culture competence requires self-awareness, culture humility, and commitment to understanding and embracing culture as central effective practice. Mama Sue. Okay. Becoming culturally competent and producing culture humility are ongoing process that changes in response to new situations, experiences, and relationships. Culture competence is a necessary foundation for culture humility. Gaining cultural knowledge. What are other cultures like and what strength do they have? Developing culture self-awareness. What is my culture and how does it influence the way I view and interact with others? Culture humility. Holding systems accountable. How can I work on the institutional level to ensure that the system I'm part of move towards greater inclusion? Understanding and redressing power imbalance to redressing power imbalance. And how can I use my understanding of my own and others' cultures to identify and work to disrupt inequitable systems? From Project Ready, Culture Humility from SS Share. Culture humility is the ability to maintain an interpersonal stance that is other oriented in relation to aspects of culture identity that are most important to the person. So I did a lot. I think I got a lot out of it too, just doing this with you, Sandy.
Well, thank you, Zuhura. And I just want to remind everybody that we are not social workers. We actually both are certified peer support specialists.
Sure.
And yeah, I guess in conclusion, could you talk a little bit about Project 1619? Yeah, 1619.
Well, the project 1619 was enacted. I think it was 2017. I'm not sure though, but they had inculcated a panel of people, including their stories and in effect their experience in the Black experience and how they could readdress some of the issues that we're going through as a minority or non-white. And so it it was uh, the Willie Lynch letter that they was from 1619 is 400 years of slavery, and the Willie Lynch letter was introduced by this man named Willie Lynch. He asked um, the farmers that they was the landowners how to control a slave
Mm.
and how to make a slave, So they
Mhm.
um, conditioning, they use um, making differences between each other. And the more you white, then the more privilege you get, but you be more like them, and you become psychologically confused because your culture doesn't match the same culture that your African ancestors and stuff had set
Mhm.
forth. So they were sick because they was acting this way. And actually, some of the science history and stuff, came from Africa too. So we're not saying that, correct English and history and stuff like that. It is not to belong to us. Our education is out there, but it's been stolen and been relabeled for other people, and they steal our identity. So it's up now, and it's up to us to work together, on a humanitarian level. We have to have some allies and people to help us out in effect in strategic positions. And I'm working as a peer support specialist. I do a essay group and other things around the clubhouse that I work at. And so I'm available to be going to continue training because they have a program there where I've did about 13 classes in the field of study of mental health,
Mhm.
psychology, and I'm going back to get my CEUs. I'm going back to finish and become a psychotherapist, which is one of my dreams. And I always believe that if you have the dreams, that you can still move forward and do better things, make the best version of yourself.
Well, that's great, Zahura. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, I forgot to say, I have a mental health degree, certified psychiatric technician, and a certified peer support. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, well, thank you. Have a great day.